Over the last couple of days, it's been reported that Aquaman 2 has had multiple failed test screenings and that people are calling this film one of the most boring films in the entire DCEU. Well, I know two different people who have seen the film at a test screening, and they had something different to say about the film. So let's talk about it. Hi, my name is Shawn, and I love to talk about movies and TV way too much. With that in mind, go ahead and join me down below in the comments section. Let me know what's your excitement level for Aquaman 2, as well as how much stock do you put into these reports that come out of test screenings. Likewise, if you like these type of videos where I cover more like news stories or editorials, I have a second channel where this is kind of exclusively what I post over there. They're mostly pulled from my live streams. I have the link right around here somewhere if you want to check that out. With that said, let's dive into this article from Fandom Wire that essentially aggregated a bunch of these different reports where some people on Reddit and other places had kind of put it out there that this movie has not done well. This article kind of summarized it, and then Fandom Wire put out a graphic on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter that a bunch of you have DM'd me about. And since I do know some people who have seen the film at these test screenings, thought I had a perspective to kind of throw into the mix. So diving into the article, midway through it kind of clearly states the sources are saying it's one of the worst movies of the DCEU yet. The test screenings haven't been great. Contrast that with the test screenings for The Flash, which have actually been really, really good. That's what I've heard. My guys haven't seen The Flash, but since they're in the pool of people that regularly go to test screenings, they know a lot of the people that have seen The Flash, and they've only said people thought it was a blast, real crowd pleaser, ton of fun. But then the next paragraph dives into the specific quotes from their sources about this movie, describing it as boring and potentially the worst DCEU film. And then Insider View and Anon, this is not someone I know, but I see him pop up on Twitter pretty frequently, on Reddit said, the film does not look great even after half a dozen test screenings. Then it says another insider backed this up with a comment about the film saying that test screenings for Aquaman 2 have not been good. Industry insider Jeff Snyder has also claimed that its test screenings have not been well received. Jeff Snyder is someone that I follow. He does have a lot of sources, so I would put a lot of credibility in him saying that. So what that means is that they've done a bunch of different test screenings, so reportedly 6 different test screenings, tweaking the film just a little bit, and according to his sources, it still isn't being received very well. It's not very good, and the test screenings for Aquaman 2 have not been good. So that's essentially what their article says and what's being reported. They put it on a graphic. A bunch of you saw that and asked me about it. So I reached back out to the guys that I know that have seen the film and their response to those reports. And essentially they said they mostly disagree with it. The way they described it was, it's not great. This is not like top tier DCEU, top tier comic book movie. But boring is not the word they would use to describe it at all. Essentially, they said it's a campy adventure like the first movie that kind of doubles down on that tone and vibe. Very much a big sweeping adventure. One of them specifically said, dude, I honestly liked the cut that I saw. It wasn't a game changer or anything, but it was fine. And it has a really fun plot involving a rescue. And it's that adventure aspect that both of them said they enjoyed the most. And perhaps it's better at being kind of this globe-trotting adventure with a MacGuffin than even the first film was. But it's not great. That there was a couple things about the film that they hated. And the handling of some stuff with the villain in particular, they didn't love the way that played out. But there's elements about the film that they loved. So it's kind of love some things, did not love some other things. And the language used was essentially, yeah, it's right kind of on par with the first film, generally speaking, of some parts are better than the first film, other parts not as good as the first film, but it's in that same ballpark. That was their take on the film. And part of what makes this one a little bit tricky is that they have been doing test screenings for a long time. And as it's been well reported, the DCEU has been rethinking, recalibrating, even before James Gunn came into the picture. They were changing their plans, deciding to go in different directions. And so when the movie was originally shot, it included certain cameos, certain people playing specific characters, in particular Batman. And then through different iterations, different reshoots, we don't even know who's in the movie, even compared to the test screenings that the people I know were at. And then it might change again based off of whenever the latest test screenings have happened and different feedback that they've gotten. And on this specific point, one of my guys said that this movie's kind of been Frankenstein because of all these changes, all these canceled projects, and they are doing a lot of tweaking, a lot of reworking. So it's tough to really guess what the movie will be like by the time we actually see it, because DC is in such a state of change and fluctuation. Have to keep in mind, like, they showed footage of this movie at DC Fandom a year and a half ago, and it doesn't come out for another 10 months. Like, so the gap between when it was shot and when it comes out is unusually large for a blockbuster like this. There's been dramatic reshoots, dramatic recalibrating the direction that they want to take the DCEU before it even turned into DCU and a massive reboot. So that's where you even have to take all of this feedback from test screenings with like a bag of salt, because this thing is absolutely a work in progress where they're reshaping it for a lot of different reasons that don't even have anything to do with the test screenings themselves. It has to do with their grand plan for the DC universe. Factor that into all of this. But as I said, the people that I know that watched the movie at test screenings prior to these reports coming out, they told me, yeah, it's kind of on par with the first Aquaman. There's some good, there's some bad. It's a campy adventure. And then when I followed up with them, they read these reports and they went, nah, that wasn't what we saw. That wasn't our experience. We had more fun than that. Not great, but certainly not one of the worst. Boring is not the right word to describe the film. But these movies are very much a work in progress, or this movie in particular is very much a work in progress. Here's the Flashes too. They're just massive reshoots for all these projects as they're trying to figure out, what are we doing? How do we want to close the DCEU, transfer into the DCU? There's a lot of tinkering with these films going on. The test screenings for The Flash have been much better than those for Aquaman, but the people I know do not agree with the idea that it's boring, one of the worst of the DCU. They said right there in the middle, mid-tier, and the first Aquaman is a good point of reference for how good the film is. Also keep in mind with some of these test screenings that like an Aquaman movie, that's like pure CGI spectacle. That's what it is. Underwater creatures. One of my guys specifically said that because there's so many special effects that are in previs, that it slows the movie down a lot in a test screening, and that probably doesn't test very well. And so maybe a lot of even the people at test screenings are like, oh, it's one of the worst movies I saw. Right, because it played like watching a 2.5 hour long PlayStation 2 cutscene, because it's all pre-renders and stuff like that. Keep all of that in mind as you kind of factor in these reports. Let me know what you thought down below in the comment section. Remember, I do have a second channel where I do more of these types of videos. You can check out that somewhere around here. Thank you so much for watching. Keep talking movies and TV too much. Bye-bye.